If you are working in software industry, I bet you must have heard about these three things: principles, practices, and patterns. And I can also bet that more often than not, you must have heard more about patterns and practices than principles. Let me explain this. Think about patterns, design patterns, singleton, and many other patterns, right? Dependency injection. There are softwares or frameworks banking heavily on dependency injection, right? Now think about practices. People say best coding practices, and people say best, development practices, best estimation practices. So many best practices are there, and you are expected to follow all those best practices. But before following those best practices, have you ever considered the principles behind it? If not, we are doing the software development in the wrong way, or if I may say, in the worst possible way, because patterns and practices are derived from principles. And if we do not understand, or worse, do not know about the principles, then we are really doing things in the worst possible way. Let me explain this in the simplest possible words. Okay. So let's assume that you want to make your parents or your elders happy. What is the well known practices around it? You can give them a surprise visit or you can gift them, right? The well known practices to make your parents or elders at your home happy. But what if I decide to do something else? I try to call all their, old friends, and instead of giving them gift or giving them a surprise visit, I can, arrange a program where they can meet all their old friends. They will be happy, right? Of course, they will be. And this was the intention, right? So the principle was to make sure that the parents or elders are happy. The well known practices was gifting them, giving them surprise visit. I'm not saying those were wrong, but I came up with my own because I knew some of the aspects of my parents which may be different than, maybe your parents or other people at other places, right? It's highly likely, right? So we need to understand the principle. The principle is very simple: make them happy. But instead of understanding the principle and then understanding the people with whom we are interacting with, we just try to bank on the practices like gifting them. Okay, it's the easiest possible thing, right? Think about this. Buying a gift is easy, or contacting their all the friends, coming up with a schedule and making sure that they all come to a place and meet each other. Which one is difficult? Of course, calling people and organizing everything is difficult. But who is going to make them more happy? What is the differentiating factor between other people getting presents, you also getting present? There may be some difference between the price of the gift, but again, there is no differentiating factor. Or we are trying to tell them to be happy with the presents. You can't think of something else, even though your happiness can come from many other sources, many other things. This is the precise difference between principles and patterns and practices. Most often than not, whenever we are developing any software, whenever we are developing any product for that matter, we tend to bank more on practices and patterns, well known patterns. In this globalized world, we are banking on well known patterns despite knowing the fact that they are not universally true. There cannot be any practice, there cannot be any pattern which is universally applicable to all the problems you are dealing with, all the products you are creating. This is not possible. For example, let's talk about creating high quality product. It's your principle, but just don't bank on unit test and alpha beta test and say that since the whole world is doing unit test and alpha beta test, I also do that and I'll come up with a high quality product. No, you haven't understood your product properly. Of course, I'm not saying that you don't need unit test or alpha beta test. You will need those tests, but what is the exact nature of tests that you need to do to make sure that your product quality is perceived to be high? Remember, there is a difference between high product quality and perceived high product quality. Most often than not, your product success depends upon perceived high quality of the product. Okay, so you need to do something extra. You need to understand your product. Okay, you can do unit tests, but maybe you have to mock it in a different way. Maybe you have to use some external software to make sure that your product is of high quality. But unfortunately, I have seen people that, writing unit test, my job is done. I am writing, some integration test, my job is done. No, nothing like that. Unless and until you understand your product, your project, your software, you will not be able to come up with things which is required to be of high quality. Many a times it happens that when we create a plan, we say that this much time for unit test, this much time for integration test, this much time for alpha beta test, even before the software or the product is created. Nobody has understood that but made a plan for this. That means we are banking more on existing patterns and practices which may or may not work most of the time, and I do believe that it will not work most of the time. That's the precise reason you have lots of bug when you create a new software, or when you come up with the next version of your software. Instead, if you really want to have a high quality thing, you need to bank on the principle. Your principle will be high quality product. Principle will be product with less footprint. Principle will be product that is fast. And then look into all the things you can do to enable that, to test that. And this is the way you should create your software. Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk to all of you about: principal practices and patterns. I do hope and believe that I have clarified this particular thing in the best possible way. And I do hope that from today onwards, you are going to bank more on principles than patterns and practices. Thank you all. Thanks for watching. We will meet again. Until the next time we meet, good day, goodbye. You take care.